Hello, hello. Welcome back to the weekly Monday Motivation Podcast, No More Excuses. I am your host, Sandi Ballard, the super badass business coach. Yes, thank you for being here, for listening, for sharing the podcast with others. And, who's connected with me on social media? I mean, if you are, cool. Message me so I know you are a listener and you're there because I want to reciprocate. I want to follow your page or connect with you, right? And if you're not, you're missing out because I continue this podcast theme and I challenge you deeper with more questions, articles, and ways to continue working on your development. So I guess if you're just a podcast listener, cool, and I appreciate you still listening. Oh, and if you want to know more about me and my coaching, buy some badass swag, check out any other workshops or webinars that I'm having, go to badassbusiness.coach because that is my website. And yes, we are 2 months into 2021, 2/3 of the way through quarter one. What have you been working on? What have you accomplished? What haven't you made progress on? What's getting in the way? Which means, what are you allowing, avoiding, or more like resisting? And why? Well, the last few podcasts I've talked about avoiding as well as about doing what you love and having fun. And if you're having fun and doing what you love, then you shouldn't be avoiding and resisting. You should be making progress, right? Not always. It's been interesting as I've had some conversations with clients recently, one, male and female, not always women, male and female, about this concept, this whole subject. And because I noticed they weren't making progress. They were having challenges, and their biggest challenge was committing to some of the things they said they were going to do. Interestingly, both of them told me stories about things in their childhood that have stuck with them. So it was like a word I had said or we used, and one is their word of the year. And she said, that word is something that I have a negative association with because of my mom. And so, these stories were about things their parents did themselves or rules that were given to them by their parents. And now they're attached to certain words. And those words are things they need to do or to help them. And you're probably like, okay, which words? Well, work and plan. We tend not to associate current resistance sometimes with things from our childhood or understand how shit that happened years ago is still with us as adults. But, we're born and bred that way, right? It's in us. And sometimes people use their past as a reason, aka bullshit excuse, as why they're not doing something or to not try something. They're like, well, I can't because. And if you listen to my podcasts for a while, and remember, the title of the podcast is No More Excuses. It's my job to listen as the stories are being told and challenge them to determine if it's an excuse or something that we need to work on to overcome. We aren't our past, but we are. And yes, it's very two-sided, right? And if you're wondering why I'm talking about this, yes, it's shit you should be discussing with your therapist. If you don't have one, maybe you get one. But if you do have a therapist, hopefully you are digging into this. But I need to know this as well. Your therapist will work on your past and help you detach or unassociate yourself from negative connotations. And I'll help you reframe things and get you working on your future. We've all heard, and I've shared this quote, don't look back, that's not where you're going. And in my second book, How Badly Do You Want It? Chapter 5 is titled, Dear Past, Thank You for Your Lessons. Which these are about learning from your past, taking the lessons you've learned, from failures, things you've tried and such. But I'm talking about deeper, maybe a long time ago as kiddos, right? This is about things that were instilled in you at a very young age that no longer serve you. And you probably didn't realize it until you hit a brick wall and wondered why. Wondered why you weren't making progress on stuff or gave up on things. So as you're thinking about what you've accomplished and what you haven't, dig deeper into the why, like I did with my clients. There are so many reasons why you may not have made progress on a goal or gave up on a habit, and there are even more excuses. My job is to listen to what the client is saying and is not saying, and get them to talk about it, to think about it, and then talk about it. We can use our past as an excuse by saying, well, that's how my parents did it, or, for me, my dad was a perfectionist. And dear Lord, if you weren't early, you were late. And honestly, that was good. You shouldn't really be late, ever. And what's wrong with making it right? Well, there is no perfect. I've said for all of that shit show of 2020, let's do your best because that's all we could do, right? And things our parents did or instilled in us can be great, but they can also cause a lot of stress. For example, I was constantly worrying about whether I was good enough. I was panicking and sometimes road raging if, God forbid, I thought I was going to be on time. Because remember, on time means you're late. I recognized it, but only after it had been brought to my attention many times. And I would think, well, it's not my problem. It's you that needs to step up your game. Well, then my mentor said this to me once. Sandi, do you want the towels folded or do you want them folded right? Powerful words. I now use that in my training. And if you don't understand what that means, contact me. Email me, Sandi@sandiballard.com. Sandi with eyes, right? Or message me, wherever. Let's talk about that. And I was also told by someone once, you operate at such a different pace than others. You can't expect that from everyone. For example, I may think someone, or more like in the past, I may think someone's only giving 80% when it's their 110%. We never know what's going on. And that also is probably, or was probably me pushing my expectations onto them. So I now call myself a recovering perfectionist, and I work with clients on expectations and regularly suggest or yell at them to just do it, Nike slogan. And ironically, having these recent conversations with these two clients brought a lot of my own personal journey back to the front of my mind, hence this podcast. And it's helping me remember how far I've come, what I've overcome, and no longer associate or have negative connotations with things from my childhood. I'm the words work and plan. They're two words that I love, but I don't have those negative associations with them. I love to plan, and I love what I do as my work. I don't mind working my ass off to help my clients or to market my business or to do what it takes because I'm having fun and I'm doing what I love. And I'm thankful that these two clients were open about their why and the resistance to things that were going on and not going on, and how we figured out it was, a resistance to their respective word, as that helped me understand why things weren't progressing, why there was so many challenges going on. And now we can look at ways to reframe things. I'm also being respectful and watching what I'm saying to them if I'm using those words. Because if I do, because work and plan, it's what we do, I use them in a lighter, more fun way. And I help them see that how they feel about the word is in their past, and it may not have been them. It was their parents in these cases. It's in them, but they can modify their behavior to the word. With one client, her word plan, she made planning fun years ago, and she recalled that during our session. She was telling me this story, and the energy and her excitement, she was talking about this and sharing how it worked and how she got away by herself to have no distractions in her environment. And she was starting her business, so she needed to plan. She needed to create a business plan and do this. So she made a fun retreat by herself. She didn't make it work. She had out her favorite foods. She had fun music on, her yoga mat out, and would just let the plan flow versus staring at her notepad or computer and forcing herself to create a plan. So guess what? Now she needs to plan for a new project and hasn't made much progress. So we were talking about that. That's when she remembered and was like, okay, I can do that again. So she's going to go do her retreat again, have fun with her plan. And for my other client, whose parents were really no different than any others, using the phrase, you must get your work done before you play. Well, but then realizing you sometimes can play first, but the work is still there, and then that becomes a weight, a heavy weight. And with him being super creative, having his art be his job, his quote unquote work, it causes him to retract and to not enjoy the process because it's now work. With both of my clients, trying to break that vision and attachment to those words, helping them instill fun into the process is what I will help them with. Wow, yes, that's why I'm always on my damn soapbox about you writing down what's going on and what's not going on so we can talk through the why. And because not all of you who are listening are contacting me, you should, but that's why I'm like, you've got to do this. You've got to write that down. And I know some of you are on a treadmill or walking or on a bike or in the car and can't write it down. Well, remember or remind yourself to write down what's going on. That's why it should be on your calendar now to check your progress. What's going on, what's not going on, and why? Do you have some sort of attachment to something that you didn't think about before? You can overcome negative thoughts and behaviors to things. You just have to identify what they are. And that's not always easy to see on your own. If you don't overcome them, you're holding yourself back from realizing your badassness and achieving amazing shit. So this week, I want to know, what have you accomplished and what haven't you? Look into if you've been avoiding doing, saying, or trying something, or feel resistance to something, a word, a phrase, or an idea. For the love of whatever is good and holy in your life, contact me again, Sandi at sandiballard.com. Comment wherever you're seeing this or reading this, or find me on social media so I can help you identify the resistance, reframe things, and get you out of your past and into your future now. All right, let's do this. All right, have a great resistance-free week. And if not, contact me. Let's do this. Cheers.